It's time to dissect everything post-draft. All the winners, the losers, all the intriguing trades.
I love it. I can't wait to get into it. So let's be quiet and hit that music. Hit me with it.
Oh, here we are once again, living in that wonderful fantasy world. Welcome to your new life in a fantasy football world. We thank you for joining us. Episode number 8. Yeah, we're like 2 months into this. That's not bad. Not even mad about it. Are you mad about it?
A month and a half longer than I thought it would.
I didn't think we'd get past that first episode, to be honest, but we did it somehow.
Somehow.
A great show today. The news will be engulfed with everything that happened at the draft. We're going to recap all the winners and losers, picks that we might have personally loved. We're also going to get into a new segment called the Fantasy Stock Exchange and talk about some players going up and down. And in this case, we have a lot of post-draft changes. We're also going to get into a couple other segments, but for now, let me introduce my kind and gentle fairy / gnome that I know as Wes.
When do I get to introduce you with all those adjectives that are so flattering?
One day when I'm sick and I'm can't talk very much.
Thank you, Caleb. Just a reminder, you can follow us on social media on Life in AFFW. Instagram, Twitter, whatever it be. Give us a follow. So let's get into the news and all that draft stuff.
The draft, you say?
I like the draft likes me. Let's get into the news. Just you and me.
I like it.
Thanks for the help.
I would.
Making me an ass.
I'm terrible when it comes to just jamming. People always ask because I play a little guitar and they're like, hey, you want to jam? I'm like, no, I don't. I'm not good at jamming.
Only if we can jam on that one song I know.
With the skin flute, yes. So, as everybody knows, the draft came and went last week. If you're able to tune in to our pre-draft, you'll realize that we were completely wrong about all of our fantasy draft picks. I think I got one right. Nick Bosa going number 2 to the Niners. That's it. So even TJ Hawkinson went one pick later to the Lions. So
we were close. We were warm, but we just weren't
warm in the coldest way possible. So yeah. Wes, do you want to kick us off? Anything particular you want to talk about?
I'd like to talk about, and I don't know if this is where you want to go, but I had a few winners in mind I'd like to sort of commend for them tackling Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in an aggressive way. And I know this first one's going to very much excite you, Caleb. One of my winners of the draft is the Miami Dolphins.
It's the only time I'll ever hear you say that, so I'm going to save this for the rest of my life.
First off, Christian Wilkins, 13th overall pick. That massive defensive line in Clemson, he was the best one. Also, he almost killed Roger Goodell.
He almost tackled him. Oh, it was the best.
Yeah. Awesome pick. Michael Dieter, offensive lineman, very underrated. Started for 4 years there since he was a freshman. Very underrated. I think he's a staple. And you can't forget, man, what they did to get Josh Rosen is almost a joke. They made the Cardinals look like such fools. Basically, their second-round pick was Josh Rosen, which is incredible seeing that the Cardinals traded up last year over the Dolphins because the Dolphins were rumored to go after him. So they jumped ahead of the Dolphins last year. They gave up, I think, like a third-round pick or something to draft Josh Rosen. Now, basically an early third, but technically a late second-round pick for Josh Rosen, and now he's on their roster. It was such a... The Dolphins, I feel like, are really turning the corner with, instead of doing splashy plays like signing a Mike Wallace or an Ndamukong Suh or just making big... they're doing the quiet, slowly just building your line, not making, they got Fitzpatrick. They didn't reach for anybody in free agents. Rosen basically just fell into their lap. They didn't offer a first-round pick or anything crazy. If it's a good deal, they made it. And I feel like they're really coming out on top, and they might not make a lot of noise this year, but I think they're definitely pointing in the right direction for some long-term success. Yeah. Especially, I want to say one more thing. I think it's kind of funny, though, that I think it was the GM of the Dolphins still hasn't ruled out about going in the quarterback the first round, so poor Rosen could be in the same position next year.
Well, I mean, I don't see how he could rule it out. I mean, this is way too early to start talking about that. You still have to see Rosen play, but I do love it in the same respect as Rosen. He gets the chance to restart again, and for the next 3 years, the Dolphins only owe him $6 million. Even if he's even if he's average at best, you have a very cheap, good backup quarterback to play for your team going into next year. And like you said, a second-round pick, heck yeah, you got to build your base, your foundation of your team at the draft, not in free agency, as we've talked about so many times. And I'm very happy. I'm not a huge Josh Rosen fan, but I'm a big fan of the way the draft went for the Dolphins, so I'm glad.
Yeah, I mean, just the two big points are you're paying him. He's on the lower end of a backup when it comes to how much you're paying him.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But also, you might not be a big fan of Josh Rosen, but I think anyone would be a bigger fan instead of spending the 10th overall pick for him last year. You spent a late second for him. Like, that is such low risk, high reward. Like, he would have been the top quarterback this year in the draft class. It was such a cool move that they didn't jump on anything, and they played hard to get with the Cardinals, and the Cardinals basically gave him away for a little bit.
And now he's
well done.
Now
he's
got a chip on his shoulder too. I love that.
Oh
it's
yeah, he's sick, man.
Obviously, we know Kyler Murray went number 1 to the Cardinals at this point with all this talk. And I'll have some comments about how I feel that affects the team moving forward. Is he going to be ready to play week 1? He's going to have to be, unfortunately. We'll see how it goes. I don't plan on him being Baker Mayfield from last year. He doesn't have the same offensive weapons. Yes, they drafted a couple, but don't look at him that way. He could be valuable in some respect, but curb your appeal of Kyler Murray, everybody. We got to wait to see how this Cardinals offense really works out. I know they're trying to be this high-flying, dominating offense.
Yeah. I think he'll be a Lamar Jackson who throws better, but doesn't run as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like he can definitely has better touch than Lamar Jackson has. And he is just as explosive, but I feel like, especially with where the Cardinals went in the draft, I think they drafted 3 receivers, 2 of which I'd be very aroused about. So they're starting to get some weapons around this guy. I'm feeling he's more going to use his elusiveness, definitely to run, but to almost like a Mayfield, not like he's going to duplicate the guy's stats, but use his elusiveness to buy himself time in the pocket. I think that will make him a successful quarterback. He starts running the ball like Lamar Jackson, like running the option every drive. The guy's not going to last 8 games. So.
I do think that it hurts another play on the team, but we'll talk about that later.
Ooh,
big surprise. Daniel Jones gets drafted by the Giants. Daniel Jones over Dwayne Haskins, over Drew Lock.
Over Josh Allen,
right?
The linebacker.
over the edge rusher, in Josh Allen. It was a surprise. They clearly knew who they wanted, and at that point, they were probably trying to trade down because they knew that they could get him later, but nobody was having it. The Giants now have Daniel Jones, who is kind of like Eli Manning, so it pretty much solidifies Eli Manning in the starting position, at least for this year, I would imagine. We highlighted Daniel Jones last week, and he looking at his metrics and his stats, it's not super appealing.
Well, I will say this with Daniel Jones, and I'll say this about the Giants. I think they're getting too much flack right now for what they did. Was it a reach? It was an incredible reach. But that was the man they were looking at. That's the guy they were comfortable with. Eli Manning and Daniel Jones have a relationship, which is going to make things a lot smoother since he's going to take over for Eli Manning. Daniel Jones did not have, like Kyler Murray, NFL receivers to throw to. He was throwing to guys that have a career after the NFL. It's Duke, for God's sake. I'm not saying that's an excuse for some of his poor performances, but the Giants, that was their guy at 6. Apparently, they had some intel that said there's possible 2 teams that was going to take him before 17. If that's your guy, you go and get him. I guess they tried to trade back. They weren't able to. They didn't feel comfortable taking him at 17. So, I mean, if they would have passed and took Josh Allen and Daniel Jones goes 10 to the Broncos, I mean, you're kicking yourself. And if the guy busts, it doesn't matter if you took him at 6 or 17. He's going to be a bust. So, if they're comfortable with him, if that's their next Eli Manning, they're just going to have to take their punches right now, but that's the guy they wanted.
Yeah.
So kudos to them for not giving a crap about the public. And also what I thought was interesting, I heard on the radio the other day, we're all assuming the NFL draft boards are Mel Kiper and Todd McShay's draft board. Like, we don't know what the team's draft boards look like. We're just going off of mock drafts that are on the computer. You know, me and every average Joe. We don't know what these scouts have told their teams and stuff. Like, Daniel Jones is only getting called a reach because of what ESPN analysts have said, you know, not these professional scouts or coaches.
Right.
So I think they're getting a little too much flack. I do think they should have taken Josh Allen because I think he would have been an incredible pass rusher for him. But they took Daniel Jones. They felt comfortable enough. They think he can sit a year or two and take over for Eli, and only time will tell.
It gives him the opportunity to build the rest of it over the next couple of years while he learns. So,
exactly.
Next one I want to mention, and I like this for where he goes. At number 24, the Raiders grabbed Josh Jacobs. And if you believe, I mean, he's 5'10", 220. He's just the ideal size back, even though he didn't have great numbers in college. But he goes to a team where he immediately has the opportunity to be in that number 1 role. And that's why I like where he went and the pick that he went in the draft. I like that he went to the Raiders. Now, the Raiders did not really do much to improve the offensive line, to improve the other pieces, to assist the running game. But we've seen in the past running backs have a great opportunity, even with bad offensive lines. Josh Jacobs can catch the ball. He's a big back. So going to the Raiders, he's actually somebody you can draft because you know he's going to have a starting role. I don't see Isaiah Crowell or the Doug Martin or anybody else really taking that role from him.
Yeah. That's tough. I was looking at a stat the other day. I can't tell you for sure the specifics, but it was something along the line of John Gruden's running backs where they ranked. There's been no running back that has finished the season over 20. So all his running backs are 20th through, whatever. They're not super successful. Does he not give a full load to a running back? Is it just his scheme? I don't know, but it was something that made me a little hesitant on Josh Jacobs, especially since we talked last week. Josh Jacobs has never really had a full load in the first place, which makes me think they're not going to start in the NFL giving him a full load. So he's intriguing, but as it comes to fantasy, I know he's not going to be on my teams because there's always that guy who just wants to go balls to the wall on the rookie and just think he's going to be an Adrian Peterson or something. No, where he should be drafted is where he won't be drafted.
Right, exactly. That's the problem.
If that makes sense.
Who's your next like it or hate it? Love it or hate it?
Well, you're going with players. I'm going to give you another team that I like that's been kind of getting some flack, but I really like their draft. The Chicago Bears, okay? Mm-hmm. Basically, their first-round pick was Khalil Mack, which, awesome. He was a beast. I know everyone's saying, like, he hasn't won a playoff game. Just shut up, okay? The guy freaking changed that defense. He almost has as many sacks as the Oakland Raiders defense. Then, with their first pick, was the whole way in round 3, they got my favorite running back of the draft, David Montgomery, who's going to fill in perfectly for Jordan Howard, and I think definitely be far superior than Jordan Howard. And then they go, and in the next round, they take Riley Ridley, Calvin Ridley's brother, who was supposed to go a lot higher in the 4th round. I think that was a great spot for him. I think with the few picks they had, they really made the most out of it by getting one of the top running backs, by getting, in my opinion, one of the top 5-6 receivers in the draft, all was starting their draft in round 3. So definitely worth the trade for them to give up Khalil Mack and then get 2 difference makers on the offense, and, in my opinion, fantasy relevant players this year. So just a little kudos to them.
Well, that's good. I mean, when David Montgomery, unfortunately, is obviously considered a very slow player. He ran nearly a 5-second 40-yard dash. So that's probably, having him likened to Jordan Howard is probably the best comp, because he's not this quick, super agile guy that's going to really juke everybody out of their minds and take off down the field. He's going to probably break a tackle or two and just rumble down the field instead.
Can I say something, though? I'm the anti-Oakland Raider in the fact that the 40 time is so overrated in my mind. It's incredible. Like, at what point in the NFL are you just going to get to stand there, take a deep breath, and then run as fast as you can for 40 yards? Like, you're a running back. You got Tariq Cohen. He's the guy that does that stuff. Your job is to grind out 4, 5, 6 yards on 1st or 2nd down, and that's exactly what this guy's going to do for him. If it's a perfect need, and when you're within the 10-yard line, they're not getting Tariq Cohen to run it up the middle, you know? I could see this guy having 6, 7 touchdowns in his rookie year.
You don't see him having to fight for those touchdown attempts with the guy they grabbed from the Seahawks, Mike Davis.
Yeah, I thought about that. I think things will get a little clearer in the preseason on usage. But honestly, I think they signed Mike Davis with a really smart signing, but I don't think they thought David Montgomery was going to be there for him. That's why they had to trade up for him, because they're like, my God, this guy's still here. I think it'll be almost like an Alvin Kamara situation. I am not in any way relating their skill set to each other. I'm just saying Alvin Kamara came into a situation where Mark Ingram's there, Adrian Peterson's there. No one's really giving him a second thought, but skill wins out. All he needed was an opportunity, and they cut Adrian Peterson within a couple weeks. I'm not saying Mike Davis is going to get cut, but I think Montgomery's going to show up there. I think he's going to show him what he's made of, and the talent, you're not going to be able to keep that on the bench. I'm not saying he's getting 20 carries a game, but I'm saying he's going to get more work than a third-string running back. Yeah.
Plus, again, if you're playing Dynasty, that's the kind of valuable guy you want to grab, because he's going to be there far longer than any of the other running backs on the team.
Heck yeah.
A pick that I really hate. I don't hate the guy. Marquise Brown went to the Ravens. And I don't hate it for the Ravens. I think he's going to help the Ravens to be better. But for fantasy value, it pretty much leaves him undrafted for me. Somebody's going to grab this guy. But unless Lamar Jackson drastically improves his passing ability and what he does through the air, he is not going to create a wide receiver 1 on that team. You're going to draft Marquise Brown, and he's at best going to finish as a wide receiver 2 with some touchdowns. But I was hoping that he would have gone to somebody more like the Colts. They would have gone for him earlier. But unfortunately, he's on the Ravens, and just don't like Ravens wide receivers, many of them.
Hey, man, you took the words out of my mouth. This was the guy I was going to say next. This poor guy has all the talent in the world, and he belongs on a team like the Kansas City Chiefs or the Steelers wouldn't have taken him, but the Steelers or the Packers, some team that is not afraid to air it out. Not a team that runs the option or runs the ball 75% of the time. Like, this guy's a burner. I can see kind of him having some success because I could see a lot of screen passes or a lot of dink and dunks to him and then him making a big play out of it. But by no means is his talent going to be maximized in Baltimore. And in fantasy, unless it's Dynasty, man, I would be very, very timid unless it's one of the last rounds, which, again, it won't be because someone will reach for this guy. I just think he's in a really poor situation. when you're in a run first. He's basically in an offense from the 90s,
Yeah.
and with his skill set, he needs to be in the modern day, like a West Coast offense, throwing the ball 40. Like, he is explosive talent, but I just don't think he's going to get many opportunities.
And we could see Lamar Jackson have some improvement. Absolutely. I mean, it would be very hard not to improve over your numbers from last year. Almost impossible.
Yeah, that's a good
So there has to be some improvement there. John Brown's not there anymore. They need more pass catchers. So here's your opportunity. They have a highly touted tight end, and I think they drafted another tight end too. I may be out of my mind, but anyway, so enough of him. Who's your next one?
Okay, this guy I like. Devin Singletary got drafted by the Buffalo
He was
Bills.
my next one.
Let me ruin it for you. No, I don't have much to say about him except I like where the Bills got him. They got him right after David Montgomery. I think he's going to be a great pickup for him, especially with LaShawn McCoy's health, Frank Gore's age. I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity. And dynasty leagues, I would be all over this guy because McCoy, I think's contract's up this year. Frank Gore, I think it was only a 1-year contract. Like, if he shows enough this year, he is going to be the man next year. So go ahead, you can give.
Well, what I really like about, so I like him as a running back first of all, even though he's that shorter, guy. What I really like is that right before him in the second round, they grabbed one of the best offensive linemen out of this draft. So they are like, yes, they took Ed Oliver number 1, but you had to do that where you're picking. But their number 2 pick, you take Cody Ford, who's a really good offensive lineman, who is there to make you a better running team because Josh Allen can sling the ball down the field. He has to work on his accuracy a little bit, but they have no problem passing the ball. You need to give him a little more time and open up a little bit more in the running game, and that's what they did. And that's why I like Devin Singletary even more, because now they're actually doing what they have to do to improve that part of the game.
Agreed. I think I had the Bills down as one of my big winners of the draft. I know it's a fantasy show, but that Ed Oliver pick was just genius. They didn't have to trade any future assets to move up to get him. He fell right to their laps, which I think he was up there with the Alabama defensive tackle, Williams. Yep. And then to get one of the top offensive linemen, Cody Ford, in the second, and then to get one of the top running backs. I mean, they just nailed this draft. It might not pay dividends this year, but they're setting themselves up. I mean, let's all say a prayer that Tom Brady sometime soon retires. This division's going to be very interesting with the Bills up and coming, with the Dolphins up and coming.
3 first-round quarterbacks now. Besides Tom Brady, you have Rosen, Allen, and Darnold. There's a big future. It'll be interesting to see what the AFC East looks like.
Yeah. Finally, for the first time in a long time, the AFC East, other than the Patriots, the 3 other teams actually have a direction they're going. They're not just trying to plug and play and get to 8-8 this year. They're trying to do it right, and I think it's looking good. And I think in a couple of years, that's going to be one of the toughest divisions in the NFL.
Well, I mean, I'm both glad and mad about it because I would rather like the Dolphins just get really good and everybody else just stay bad, but it's not going to happen that way.
That would be ideal. Yeah, 31 other teams just are terrible.
This doesn't necessarily have much fantasy relevance, but I found it interesting that the Cleveland Browns, even though they didn't score any huge, massive players, they didn't draft any offensive players at all except for a kicker. They took an offensive lineman, but they got all their offensive players in the free agency. And now they said, what we have to do? We have to improve the other side of the field. They got Greedy Williams, Sayon Takaki, the linebacker. They improved a lot on the back end in their secondary. So I'm really actually interested to see maybe the Cleveland Browns can actually pull something out of this one and really be this good this season, because it seems like their front office is making all the right moves. They're like, hey, we scored big in free agency, got our offense to be stellar, and now let's take care of the defense. So I thought that was pretty good that they did.
I think it was ridiculous. Browns are already starting to annoy me. Like, they're almost Patriot-esque. Like, how does this stuff happen? Like, they traded their first-round pick for Odell Beckham, so they got a pick in the second round. And who did they pick? You could debate the number one cornerback in the entire draft, Greedy Williams. Like, come on, man. That's ridiculous. Like, of course they don't have to draft offensive linemen or offensive players. They have 2 Pro Bowl running backs. They have 2 Pro Bowl receivers. They have a really good tight end. They have good backup receivers. Their offensive line's half decent. They got one of the up-and-coming quarterbacks in NFL. Like, it's ridiculous the 180 this team has done, and now all of a sudden their bad luck in the draft looks like everything's falling to them. So it's a crazy change for Browns and Browns fans. And I'm kind of cheering for them. Like, it's a feel-good thing, but also I'm remembering they're in the Steelers division, and it stings.
A little bit. It would be really awkward to have the Browns leading that division.
Yeah, and I was going to tell you another receiver. This goes along with Marquise Brown. You made me think of this. A.J. Brown out of Ole Miss fell to the Tennessee Titans. On paper, that looks good. I feel like that poor guy is going to be almost like a Marquise Brown in the fact of I don't think Marcus Mariota has poor stats because of the weapons around him. I think the weapons around him has poor stats because of Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's that good of a quarterback. I think his rookie year, his second year were the heights of his career so far, and then for some reason he just got worse. A.J. Brown, I don't think he's going to do much. Maybe 500 yards, maybe 2-3 touchdowns. It's just not a very uninspiring.
More of a typical rookie
season stats. Yeah. And with the team with Derrick Henry and Deion Lewis, they just don't throw that much. Yeah. I just wouldn't get too excited about it. On paper, they needed another receiver, and A.J. Brown was a perfect addition. But you add in Marcus Mariota, I don't know. Maybe if Ryan Tannehill gets in there, it's different, but honestly, it's an ugly situation. And
well, I was very surprised that they only took 1 offensive lineman, and they need a lot of help on the line, but they just didn't go for anybody. Unfortunately, until the 3rd round, and then that's all they did. So we'll see how it translates. I think it translates to a beat-up quarterback, but oh well.
Now, I know you want to move on, but I got 3 quick things to tell you. 3-headed monster that
giddy up.
I like where they landed. Paris Campbell going to the Colts. Keep your eye on him. Very nice, Andrew Luck. Fast. Also, Hakeem Butler. Big fan of the guy, fell to the Cardinals. When Pittsburgh passed on him, I don't want to question the Steelers with receivers, but I was a little upset about it. But Hakeem Butler to the Cardinals, what a pick, man. Awesome.
He's catching bombs. They have a very, very young wide receiver core, but they could be pretty good.
Oh, yeah. That Isabella guy they got in the Dolphins trade. Yeah. And I think they got a 3rd receiver in the draft. They got some young talent. And with Christian Kirk and Fitzgerald, man, he's like the stinking sensei. What a perfect mentor you have for your young receiving core. You couldn't have a better mentor.
Keyshawn Johnson was the one they grabbed in the 6th round.
Keyshawn Johnson.
Not the old one. Yeah.
And then my last guy I liked, even though I was not high on it at all, DK Metcalf, I think would have been a terrible pick in they had him going to the Bills in mock drafts and stuff. Yep. Terrible, especially when you're the number 1 receiver. He goes to a place in Seattle where he doesn't have to be the number 1. Not as high expectations, going almost a 3rd round pick. It was the last pick in the 2nd round. I think it's an ideal situation for him. Russell Wilson's there. He could. Yeah, you have time to develop now. You don't have to step into a place immediately and expect to put up 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns your first season.
And of course, Doug Baldwin, unfortunately, the news came out he may never play again. So, he's got a good role.
Unfortunately, the only thing I've been right about on the podcast is predicting a poor guy retiring due to injury.
So.
No, but Metcalf, he just has become a lot more appealing in a dynasty league than if he'd have landed in the top 10 picks.
Yeah, and I do like him there because Russell Wilson, obviously with Tyler Lockett, He doesn't pass a lot, but a lot of his passes are just bombs down the field. And when you're a big, tough guy like that, yeah, you'll have some success. Well, we're going to wrap that up. If you think of anything else throughout the episode, feel free just to jump in and say, hey, you know what? I also want to talk about how the Packers didn't draft a wide receiver. And
hey, you want to know what? I want to tell you how the Steelers can thank Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell for having Devin Bush on their team.
It worked out pretty good, huh?
Yeah, if they wouldn't be getting a third-round compensation pick for Le'Veon Bell, they wouldn't have made the trade. If they wouldn't have an extra third-round pick that day because of Antonio Brown, they wouldn't have made the trade. They felt comfortable because they had 2 third-round picks, one of them being basically a late second because it was like the second pick in the third round.
Jump up 10 spots and get who you want.
They felt comfortable trading next year's third because they're basically going to be getting a third for Le'Veon Bell. So thank you very much, you fools. I'm hoping the Steelers got one of their great middle linebackers and a long line of inside linebackers for the Steelers. And he's one of those guys that if he wasn't drafted by the Steelers, I probably wouldn't be able to stand him. So thank you for making that possible.
Up next, so there's a little bit of piece of news over the last few weeks that we have not been touching on, but we're going to touch on it in the first part of our new segment, the Fantasy Stock Exchange. And this is when I really wish I had some kind of music. Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, 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 ding. Sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, hold.
Really, it's a common theme in fantasy football, stock going up and down on players. And the first one I want to mention, because of the ridiculous Tyreek Hill news, is Patrick Mahomes is going to drop a little bit, in my opinion. I'm not saying he's going away. Tyreek Hill, for anybody that doesn't know, has been dealing with the domestic violence case, and a recording came out of him basically threatening his wife and basically his son, saying that Tyreek Hill is the one that broke his arm, and so it's expected, maybe by the time you listen to this podcast, that he will already be on the commissioner's exempt list, which essentially, until the league, which could take a very long time to decide, would mean Tyreek Hill is not going to play, which is why one of the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver draft picks is actually going pretty high right now. What do you think, Wes?
Yeah. As it goes for Patrick Mahomes, yeah, it's definitely going to affect him. You saw in games last year when Mahomes would struggle a little bit, he'd break out with a bomb to Tyreek Hill and get himself back on track. Tyreek Hill is an amazing talent, critical to that offense, but a piece of trash when it comes to
number one fantasy wide receiver last year.
Yeah, number one a-hole in the NFL, though.
This isn't the first time he's had issues either.
Oh, this is the same woman he punched in the stomach when she was pregnant in college. And the little SH, man, he is so tiny. They should just unleash one of those defensive linemen in a room with him and then beat him around and break his arm. I mean, he's the tiniest little turd. He's got a little small man syndrome, so he takes it out on a child and a woman. But honestly, what's pathetic is, what are the Chiefs doing? What else do they need to see? Do they need to see a video? Yeah. Do they need to sit down and watch him do it to someone in front? Like, what are you doing? I understand he's important to your team, but what a freaking message, man. And what's even more pathetic is I think it will come down to him getting cut. If he gets picked up, man, that's really difficult to digest if that happens. To say, I know what this guy did. I'm aware of it. Yes, it's been proven. He's taken it out on a 3-year-old and a woman. But you know what? I'd like to give him millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Like, that's in a real serious rant right now. It makes you feel weird. It's a really hard thing to say, especially having kids, man, to think of someone doing that. And then to think of an employer saying, you know what, that's okay.
We're going to wait it out.
We're just going to not look at that. Yeah, like, come on, get your crap together. And yes, they did draft Hardman, I think his name is. who he does not have the talent of Tyreek Hill, but his comp is Tyreek Hill. So, I mean, that's good for the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes will take a dip. I still think he's explosive. I still know he won't be on my team because he's being drafted too high, and he probably will be the number one quarterback. But yes, he definitely takes a hit. Travis Kelce, on the other hand, I think
locks in.
Gets a little, big time. I think he locks in that number one spot.
So,
but yeah, it's a shame. Tyreek Hill is definitely going to have a major impact on Patrick Mahomes because I watched Chiefs games last year where Patrick Mahomes was struggling, and the thing that got him out of his slump was a bomb to Tyreek Hill or like a 40-yard gain down the field to Tyreek Hill. He's very important to Patrick Mahomes' rhythm. So it'll be very interesting to see how they adjust.
Or he'll take that 5-yard dump off and take it all the way down to the house. Real easy. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's sad. I believe in forgiveness. Everybody should have the road to redemption somehow, but this is not the first time. The Chiefs obviously had an issue with it. It's just crazy that last year they lost Kareem Hunt to issues, and now they're losing Tyreek Hill, like two of the best players on their team. It's unfortunate for them. So Patrick Mahomes.
But it's okay. They trade for Frank Clark,
What this tells me is Patrick Mahomes is much closer to the other QB1s. So don't be so quick to jump and grab him because he's there and you want the number one quarterback. This brings him much closer, farther down to earth with the other top running back. So what I will say, one player on the team that my stock is up on would be Damian Williams. And one of the main reasons why that stock goes up is because they didn't draft a running back until the 6th round. And you're not having a 6th round pick, Darwin Thompson, come in to be a lead back. You bring him in so he can be a change of pace, so he can learn at best if he turns into anything. So I think this really solidifies Damian Williams' role as the number one, and the other guy as his change of pace, Carlos Hyde as his change of pace. So I think it's really good news. I think this makes him an even more valuable player going into the draft season.
Especially that offense. Carlos Hyde is definitely an important piece to have. A guy on 3rd and 2, 4th and 1. When you need short yardage, Damian Williams is not your between the tackles kind of guy. But the offense the Chiefs run, that Andy Reid offense, you have a running back that could turn into a receiver. He's going to have catch. Yeah, especially since they haven't drafted a guy to threaten that. Yeah, he is one of my favorite running backs. I think we did a devil's advocate, pro Damian Williams. He's looking really good now, man.
Yeah.
I hope not too good, but he is definitely deserving the praise he's going to be getting and his ADP soaring. I wouldn't be surprised to see him up there.
Yeah, I haven't seen it jump too ridiculously high, but it's pretty high at this point. I don't know that he'll make it to the 1st round. I could see him making it to the 2nd round at some point, as tough as that would be. Right now he's going in 1, 2, 3, 3rd round essentially, so back of the 3rd.
Would you take him in the 2nd round?
I guess it depends on where I'm drafting. If I'm in the back of the 2nd round and it was him or Dalvin Cook, I might take Damian Williams because I feel like the Chiefs' offense is going to be more in favor. But
and Dalvin Cook's health.
Yeah, and nothing about it. It's not that Damian Williams is this all-star running back. It's just the offense is so favorable.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the player; it's the offense. I totally agree.
Next one I want to mention is Sony Michel. And although I still think he's a very talented player, what concerns me is that the Patriots picked up Damian Harris in the 3rd round of this year's draft. They had 3 third-round picks, and it was the 2nd pick. They not only did they grab him, but they actually traded up with the Bears to grab Damian Harris. Even if he's just there to mix in with Sony Michel, now you have 3 very capable backs, whether pass catching or running, in the Patriots' backfield, which is always what we're afraid of with the Patriots, is that they they never just have one back that they're going to go to 80% of the time. They always mix backs in. So it will be very hard for me to draft Sony Michel very high at this point, knowing that he's not going to get RB1 touches going into the game.
Belichick don't care about your team. He don't give a crap about fantasy football.
I wish he did.
Guys, we can't take them. We can't make Sonny Michel RB2. Let's keep him as an RB1. This draft pick, man, was a great draft pick for where the Patriots are going, which I think is a ground and pound to compensate for Brady getting older. This backfield is so messy. Let me just tell you, it is Sony Michel. It is Damian Williams.
Damian Harris.
What's his name? Damian Harris, yeah. Duh. Damian Harris, Rex Burkhead, James White. I mean, what a headache. James White, I was really high on after this past year. I don't know what to think about all this. And you don't trade up for a running back that you're going to sit on the bench. This is going to be an ugly split. I don't know how it's going to... Sony Michel is still obviously the player that you want, but how bad you want him probably has changed drastically.
Rex Burkhead was even really successful before he got injured and didn't play half the season. Like, people thought he was going to come in and he was going to be the lead back. So, yeah, that's tough.
And then they have some white fullback that was gobbling up touchdowns at the end of the year, too. So, I mean, who knows? And the fact that they just drafted in the third round a really good running back. It's a very tricky situation in New England. Just what he likes.
It is. And like you said, Tom Brady's getting older. They're going to rely on the running game more, which annoyingly, so this makes the Patriots a lot better going into this year. But for fantasy reasons, I know a lot of people really still like Sony Michel, but his stock's still going down. I'm sorry, everybody. I don't know about selling him, but hold. Hold hard.
Hold! Everybody hold!
Next up, the Falcons' offense has grown positively in my mind. One of the main reasons is because their first two picks, which both came in the first round, they grabbed offensive linemen, Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McCreary, to tighten that lineup because they know they're getting Devontae Freeman back, hopefully healthy. So if they can open up more lanes for him, they can protect Matt Ryan better. And they have some pretty dang good receivers, by the way. I don't know if you ever heard of Julio Jones, I think it is. Julio Jones.
It's pronounced Mike Jenkins.
Oh, Mike Jenkins. Okay. They have some really good receivers, and even just a little bit longer for Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan finished as the quarterback 2 last year. He tends to go up and down in fantasy seasons, but if they're pulling out all the stops to shore up their offensive line, I see there being some lateral movement this year for Matt Ryan, making the Falcons offense not, at least as good as it was last year. I think they're going to have a lot of success, and I'm very excited for owning some Falcons this year.
Yeah, I like Matt Ryan, but also, how does this affect Devontae Freeman? I think it's going to have a positive effect, opening holes for Devontae Freeman. At offensive line, now correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Falcons are the only team to be starting all first-round picks on their offensive line at some point. They might not have drafted them first round, but at some point they acquired them and they are a first-round pick. Like, they're doing a lot for this offensive line, which is very smart. So Matt Ryan, yes, it's going to have some more time to get the ball to those weapons down the field. But also, Devontae Freeman, I think people are still sleeping on him a little bit. I think this could be very intriguing. Just keep him in mind in your drafts. He's not being taken too insanely high.
Still number 51.
He doesn't have a
RB21.
Let's keep him there, boys.
Please keep him there. Hey, Corey Davis is still going before him. I just don't trust Corey Davis. But we can talk about that at a different time.
God.
Sorry, everybody. Yeah. But
whoa!
what this really means to me is you can have 2 starting wide receivers on that team between Julio Jones and man, I'm very bad at names this year. Or today.
Calvin Johnson.
Calvin Ridley. You have some. You can draft both of those wide receivers and probably play them every week, knowing that Matt Ryan's going to sling the ball around, and they don't really have any super fancy tight ends and a lot of other ancillary pieces. Sure, they're going to run the ball. Devontae Freeman will catch the ball. They did draft another running back, but that was more to replace Tevin Coleman leaving in free agency. So very happy with that.
Ding, 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 ding.
Wes.
Everyone, it was that magical time where Caleb used the word ancillary. So it happens
Everybody
every week.
Take a drink.
If you're keeping score at home.
It's a drinking game. It's a very long-winded drinking game. You always have to have a beer in your hand just in case. Not if you're at work.
So if you were waiting for it, there it was. And also, don't underestimate, Matt Ryan is always underrated going into a fantasy football season. And he's one of those guys that can put up stats that are pretty comparable to some of the top quarterbacks and being taken very late.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that he finishes the number 2 and he's still going back as like the QB 10. It's crazy. Wes, I want you to talk about this last one.
Okay. Todd Gurley. Oh, he has so much talent in the world, and they say he's feeling better. Do I buy it?
What's going on?
I don't. I mean, there was a video that surfaced, man, of him limping around out of a club or something, and then they drafted this Darrell Henderson out of Memphis, who is a really good running back. I don't think they're doing that just for kicks.
Their second pick.
Todd Gurley. Yeah. It was not like a late round pick, a flyer. It was someone that they're planning on using on their offense. I think they might have learned something last year from using C.J. Anderson. I wouldn't be surprised if Todd Gurley's best statistical years are behind him. I still think he's valuable. I don't think he's going to be as valuable as where you're going to draft him. Probably in the top 5 picks. But man, that injury, what was it? Did it come out as arthritis or something? It was something that was very troubling to hear.
It still seems too secretive. Like, it's not that simple.
And secretive is bad. Like, if they just came out and said, hey, he tore his ACL, okay, a year he'll be... But the fact that there is no straight answer makes me feel scared that it's either something super serious, something long-term, or something they haven't even pinpointed yet, which is very concerning. And the fact they spent a top pick on Darrell Henderson tells me they're a little afraid of it too. So stock down big time for Todd Gurley. He's still, if he could be healthy, man, top running back, in my opinion. Better than Saquon Barkley. Top running back in that offense. His health, though, is very much in depth.
Which is crazy.
And they can say whatever they want. They said he's healthy now. They said that going into the Super Bowl and the NFC Championship game, and he wasn't. So
yeah, he's currently ranked as the RB6 now. He did drop a little bit, but if you take him, you're giving up Devontae Adams, Julio Jones, Odell Beckham, Michael Thomas, Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah.
I'd rather have Le'Veon Bell, personally. So, right now.
Oh, interesting you say that.
Okay, so what do you want to do next?
Oh, I'm feeling a little devilish, Caleb. How about you?
Welcome to Devil's Advocate.
All right. So, as we've done in the past, Devil's Advocate doesn't mean that we don't like these players, but we want to give the argument for or against certain players that you may be considering or not considering, because some of these players we do really like. And I'm going to start us off. This is Devil's Advocate against. And Wes, tell me what you have against Le'Veon Bell.
Oh, Le'Veon Bell. What do we have to say about you? You're talented. You're one of the best running backs in the last couple of years. So why would I want to argue against having you on my team? You're a fat man. That's why. Apparently reports came out in the offseason that he hit 260. Out of shape. That messes with your explosiveness. That messes with... And he's not a crazy motivated guy, it don't seem like, with him skipping camp all the time and skipping a whole season. So Jets, did you just sign a massive deal to a fullback? I'm just kidding. He obviously will get back in shape, but just keep that in mind. And the miles, Caleb. My God, the miles on this guy. He is one of 6 players with at least 1,300 total touches since 2013. And guess what? He didn't even play last year. But the main reason that I'm scared about this guy is the Jets' offensive line, okay? Pittsburgh Steelers' offensive line ranked in the top 10 the last 4 years, okay? The Jets, dead last. They're nowhere near as talented as the Steelers. It's no coincidence that last year they were just constantly comparing James Conner to Le'Veon Bell, and the stats were so similar. Not saying he's not talented. I'm saying maybe start looking at the offensive line a little bit. I mean, if you have holes that a bus can drive through, a lot of running backs can put up decent stats. And here's something to think about that I was a little thrown off by. 176 linemen last year, Caleb, played at least 400 snaps. When they ranked them, no Jets player finished higher than 155. That's insane. 176 linemen qualified for this ranking. Their best offensive lineman was 155th. And the big signing they just had, that guy from the Raiders, that guard, finished 161st. And this isn't just total offensive lineman. This is, sorry, I should have said this before. This is when it comes to rushing offense. That Kelce or whatever his name, the guard from Oakland, the big signing they had, was 161st in rushing. So that's
not great.
That huge signing might have helped Sam Darnold, not Le'Veon Bell. But hey, maybe Le'Veon Bell can, duplicate that receiving. Maybe not. You're not going to see Sam Darnold drop back as much as Roethlisberger did. Roethlisberger threw a crazy amount the last few years, and Le'Veon Bell had a lot of targets. Sam Darnold's going into his second year. And this isn't a Peyton Manning kind of second year where he's thrown it 40, 50 times a game. It's a Jets offense that is looking to bring him along, and he is not going to be throwing it 40, 50 times like Roethlisberger did when Le'Veon Bell was having his heyday in Pittsburgh. Ultimately, I think that means no more 100-plus target seasons for Bell. He's a fine running back, Caleb, if you're going to select him in maybe the middle of the second, late second, but he doesn't present the ceiling you want out of a first-round pick. There's too many question marks. And like I said, the scariest thing to me is that offensive line. When a guy that has come off the bench, James Conner had just very few carries his rookie year, comes in and puts up those numbers that you just put up, then you got to start thinking, okay, is it the offensive line or is it the player? He's now the Jets' starting running back. Not major competition. He will put up the stats. He will get some touchdowns. But will he put up the touchdowns that maybe, I don't know, a Melvin Gordon will put up, a Christian McCaffrey, a DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams? I don't think I can take those guys. I don't think I can pass on those guys for Le'Veon Bell. So, is he draftable? Very much. I think he's going to be a very good Jets running back. A good Jets running back is a mediocre running back. So that's my reason. Unless there's a miracle that he drops to the second round, middle to the late second round, or early third, I don't see him on any of my teams. So that's my little argument for him. Now we're gonna flip the script and talk to you about this new upcoming team. Exciting, Cliff Kingsbury, the number 1 pick, Murray, and that running back, David Johnson. Why would I ever avoid him in such a great offense, Caleb? Please.
I totally agree, and you shouldn't. I'm done. One quick point. You were mentioning about the offensive line for the Jets. I just wanted to throw out there that this NFL draft, they drafted 1 offensive lineman, and guess what he's not good at? The run game. He's just bad in the run game, and they grabbed him in the 3rd round, so they didn't really help that.
Oh, man. Like, I like Le'Veon Bell going into the season. Like, this devil's advocate is really making me eliminate a lot of guys off my list going into the draft.
It's tough. It's very tough. I'm very excited. We have some nice news at the end of the show. So,
Oh, yeah.
David Johnson. I love David Johnson this year. I really do. I mean, I loved him last year. I just didn't own very much of him. David Johnson in 2018 was drafted in the top 5. Okay, he's the top 5, and he finished the top 10. Top 10 is still good. Or the number 10, let me clarify that. That's still good, but not for a top 5 pick in that case. Now, most of the blame has been placed on Mike McCoy, who's no longer there, or a bad offensive line, as is the case with many running backs. But there is a new head coach, right? New coordinator, and new quarterback. And it's looking to be a powerhouse offense that they want to do, high flying, which might sound great if you're in a PPR league, but now with Kyler Murray, who rushed for over 1,000 yards last season, you can no longer count on those dump-off short yardage attempts from somebody who's a pocket passer. That's not what Kyler Murray is. He's not tall enough to be a pocket passer. So, what's going to happen? You're not going to have any. You're going to have designed pass plays for David Johnson, which is going to make his attempts and his receiving targets drop a lot. He had over 50 receptions last year. But, he's going to cap off at 35. Still decent, but is he going to be a top 10 running back? And don't bother to look at the draft because the Cardinals, as we mentioned before, drafted 3 high-caliber wide receivers. They're not looking to pass it to the running back. They're looking to pass it down the field. Kyler Murray is going to get flushed out of the pocket very quickly because he's fast and he can move around, and his eyes are going to go downfield. David Johnson is going to be having to resort to pass protection more often when that pocket breaks down like that. How about that bad O-line, Wes? How about that bad O-line? Guess what? Yeah, do you want to know what happened? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, the Arizona Cardinals did not tend to it at all. And when I say that, it means they waited until the 6th round to grab an offensive lineman, which, okay, they grabbed 2 offensive linemen back-to-back, 6th round and then the 7th round. Neither player is going to be a starter right away. You don't draft players there to be starters. They gained guards in the offseason. They got J.R. Sweezy and Max Garcia, but those aren't really that great of players because they lost 3 other guards in the meantime. Neither of them are stud guards, so no improvement to the O-line as of yet, if not worse than it was last year. So David Johnson didn't even rush for 1,000 yards last season, so if his receiving targets are going down, if the O-line is worse, even if it's a more favorable offense, I don't see him breaking that 1,000-yard rushing. Will he maybe perhaps catch more touchdowns? He had 10 touchdowns last year. He did pretty good in the touchdown category. Unfortunately, Murray's just going to be scrambling outside and taking all the rush yards away. So unfortunately, if you draft David Johnson in the 1st round or the 2nd round, you're probably going to get worse than RB1 production this year. I'm sorry, David Johnson. I love you.
Stop ruining players for me.
It's just, doing research is annoying.
Let me just tell you this about David Johnson. In his last 11 games last year, he had 3 touchdowns rushing. That's bad.
Not good. It's not good.
It's not good.
Hot pot of coffee. That's not good.
Right on the crotch.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to Devil's Advocate. We're actually curious if anybody listens to this, if you want to nominate a player for Devil's Advocate, we'd be happy to go over that. Just nobody like Saquon Barkley, and I know by mentioning that.
Yeah, don't be a jerk about it.
It's going to be like Dan Marino. Well, let me tell you why. He's retired. But before we wrap up, we're going to have a shorter version, but as everyone's favorite guide to the afterlife, The Wrath of Wes.
Welcome. And yes, it is going to be shorter. watching the draft, which is one of my favorite events of the year, I really get into it, more than I probably should. But watching these instant reaction and these grades and teams getting drilled for picks that have been made minutes before, it really upsets me how ridiculous it is. These writers will talk about terrible, they botched this draft, this is going to set them back a decade. The guy was drafted a day ago. You have no clue what's going to happen. So I decided to go back a couple years and just look over some of the drafts and the grades. And I picked about 3 players a year, and I just wanted to present them and how the writers analyze the pick. Just for if your team got a bad grade, you don't got to lose hope. And if your team got a great grade like the Patriots, shut up. They might have sucked. So listen up. 2015. Let's go to Kevin White. We all know Kevin White, right? A. He got an A. We all know how that turned out. Danny Shelton of the Browns, defensive tackle. He got an A. It just simply said, the Browns D just got tougher. He got traded to the Patriots for like a 5th or 6th round pick. This is close to Caleb's heart. 14th overall pick in the 2015 draft, Devontae Parker. The analysis was Parker is a complete nightmare for quarterbacks when the ball's in the air. From the outset, he will be Ryan Tannehill's go-to weapon.
Did it work out?
2016. We're still waiting. 2016, the number 3 overall pick, Joey Bosa. Average speed, too high. Should have went with DeForest Buckner. It worked out perfect for the Chargers as they have Joey Bosa as their defensive end for the next 10 years. Number 22 overall pick that year, Josh Doxson, went to the Redskins. A++. He combines size, strength, and speed to be one of the class best talents at any position. That guy is so bad at receiving the football in Washington, it's not even funny. But the pick after was even better. Laquan Treadwell. Another A. He's a tough, physical, consistent receiver who has the skills to become Minnesota's top target. He has the frame and the ball skills to develop into a dominant receiver number 1. This guy is struggling to stay rostered in Minnesota right now and has never made any real noise there since he got there. Let's go one more year to 2017 because I like to give these at least 3 years to develop. 8th overall pick, Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey will make the Panthers' offense a little better, but sort of like Darren Sproles, was extremely overdrafted. I think those who had him on their fantasy team last year would tell this guy to shove his analysis. The number 10 pick, Patrick Mahomes. This is what I like. Calling Mahomes a project is a major understatement. He's nowhere near ready to play in the NFL, and honestly, he may never be. Between his inconsistent accuracy due to poor mechanics. The dude threw 50 touchdowns and won MVP as his first year as a starter.
What was that analyst's name?
2 picks later. It may or may not have been Pete Prisco.
Okay.
Gotcha! And also, this was also a little bit of Sports Illustrated. I was just looking at a couple of different websites, but it was mainly CBS. Deshaun Watson with the 12th overall pick. It just simply said, I'm not so sure Watson will ever develop into a top quarterback. I just bring these examples up because these instant reactions have so much emotion to them, and it's so pointless. It is so pointless to grade a draft days, much less a year after it, but days before the guys have even stepped foot on an NFL football field, even stepped foot on a practice field. So I just get a little hope for you guys that your team might have got a D, like Giants. How could they have ever drafted that Duke quarterback so high? Well, in 3 years, he might be having the Giants in the playoffs, and everyone's going to forget about this analysis. You think the Chiefs fans are still mad that Patrick Mahomes got a D- grade, and they said he's never going to be ready to be a starter in the NFL? No. The guy is their starter for the next 10 to 15 years. They have the quarterback position locked down, and they're going to be in the playoff hunt for the majority of that. Deshaun Watson, the same way. Christian McCaffrey, same. All these guys, I just had to go on a little bit of a rant how ridiculous these grades are. That's all. Thank you.
I'm kind of guilty of it too. Like the pick will be made, and I'll look to see, hey, how does that get graded out? Especially when it comes to my Dolphins, I'm always curious. But you're right; it's essentially meaningless because that player may be completely different come season time because he's a college player and now he's in the professionals.
Oh yeah, we're all guilty of it because we're all excited. Okay, the Steelers picked Huji Madabadi. I wonder what these guys have to say about it. And you read about it, and you're like, oh, like it's a little fun little bonus after your guy gets drafted. But honestly, it's like reading some sort of storybook. Like it's just for entertainment, really. It has no real basis, and you shouldn't put any stock into it. Yeah, it's like fiction. Yeah. It's like a little fan fiction of the draft.
Oh. Well, I'm glad you talked about that. Now I can feel worse about my ogling all the grades. But I hope it works out for the Dolphins this year because people graded them pretty good, even though they only had like 5 draft picks.
Do you want it to work out for the Dolphins?
Yes.
Like, would you rather them tank this year and get Tua or a really high draft pick, or would you like them to go 7-9, 8-8 and start heading in the right direction?
And see, now is when I think that Ryan Fitzpatrick has to take a backseat no matter what. Now you have to play Rosen. You have to get him in there. You have to see what you have. I only want them to win any games if Rosen is playing well. Definitely not a Cardinal season like he had last year. But if he has 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 63% accuracy, has a decent enough year, and they win 6 games, that would make me happy. But that makes me, and he doesn't get injured, that makes me say, okay, this guy has real potential. Yes, we're still picking number 10, but now we don't have to go quarterback because even Tua, we have a whole nother year to see what Tua does and what some of these other quarterbacks do. Nobody's a guarantee. So we have a player now that has the potential to be really good, and we have a whole year to very cheaply find out what he's made of. So I am happy to see where they go and what he do. Now, it would be bad if he's really bad and they win 6-7 games, but I don't see that happening because I don't think the rest of the team is good enough to compete that high. So that's kind of where I'm at.
And my final thought on Josh Rosen was him coming into the NFL, I was not a big fan at all. He seemed cocky to me, entitled. The way he's handled this Arizona trade and handled himself, and even though he's been in the dark about his future, I mean, this is major.
Yeah.
You don't think about this. Like, the guy's living in Arizona. I don't know where I'm living in a few weeks. Like, I don't know where I'm going. I'm getting no information from my team. I'm getting no information from the media. I'm just sitting on my hands, not knowing if I should be throwing to Fitzgerald in the offseason to try and, get the routes down, if I'm going to be even throwing to him this year. And then finally, they draft Kyler Murray. It's like, you guys told me I'm the franchise last year, but he just plays it cool. He thanks them all for their time. Oh, he's going to Miami. And he went from one of the guys that I couldn't stand to I really would like to see him succeed with how he handles
Absolutely.
himself.
Just his maturity about it. One of the craziest stories I read is when he found out he was going to Miami, one of the first things he did is fly to Miami. But before he did that, he had promised Larry Fitzgerald he's going to play in this softball tournament. He showed up to the tournament, and Larry Fitzgerald comes up to him and is like, dude, don't you have a plane to catch to Miami? He's like, well, I told you I'd be here, so I'm here. I want to do this. So, like, he knows he's going to Miami, but before he goes to the airport, he stops and plays softball for this thing that he promised Larry Fitzgerald. I thought it's like, this guy stands up to his word. He's a pretty good dude.
Yeah. Real classy kind of
Classy guy.
I like it classy. On this show, we're assy. He's very classy.
Yeah, we dropped that CL because we don't need it.
Yeah, we don't even give a
Oh, thank you so much. This was a good show. Our mini announcement is that this week we are going to work on and we're going to have together our rankings because next week we're going to start diving into top 10 running backs. Yay! some top 10 running backs between the two of us, our very own, and they're going to be a little hot takey. I'm just going to tell you, at least mine is for
Hot
sure.
takey.
I'm going to put like Tevin Coleman.
Josh Rosen, number one.
Number one, all the way. Josh Rosen, number one. Ryan Fitzpatrick, number two. And we're also going to start divulging into team dissection. We're going to talk about coaching changes, what increased productivity we think we can see in between wide receivers, between quarterback play, between defensive play. We're going to try and break that down the best we can over the course of the next 8 weeks approximately. We're going to be breaking down all of our rankings, all of those teams, and add a little bit of fun in there. So get excited. We got some work to do. And
we don't do segments without fun.
We don't. Only fun all the time. Girls just want to have fun.
That's all. That's it. That's it. You just said it.
And also, we're going to totally spoil the Avengers next week. We're going to reiterate the entire script verbatim.
Yep. I'm going to be taking notes tomorrow night when we go to see it, and we're just going to sit here and just word for word do the movie.
Giggity. All right.
It'll be like old school on the radio.
Let's scat ourselves out.
Boom, bop.
Okay. I'm stopping now.
Yeah.